Hi guys, it's Laura. Thank you so much for watching and welcome back to my channel. I'm here again with another Halloween costume for this year, and my second costume is Marilyn Monroe, as you can see. So today we are going to be creating the dress, or actually a very simplified version of the dress that Marilyn was wearing in the film The 7-Year Itch. And if you want to know how I created the pattern and how I made the dress, then please keep watching. Alright guys, so here I have the sketch of the dress that we will be making today for our Marilyn Monroe costume. It is a very simplified version of the dress that Marilyn Monroe has been wearing in the film The 7-Year Itch. So the idea behind the simplification was, first of all, it shouldn't take too much of your time, and second, I wanted to make the dress of jersey, that way you won't have to incorporate zippers. So that's all the ideas that went behind this design, and these are the main pieces. So this weird shape is this part for the boobs, this part is here, and here we have obviously the skirt. Now let's start with the pattern for the skirt. So the basis for the skirt pattern is a full circle skirt, and I have here a small model of the full circle skirt pattern, which looks like this. So it's a half circle cut out in the middle, and what we need to find out is the radius of the middle that has been cut out, and for that we will have to do a little math. So the circumference of your waist equals pi times 2 times the radius, or the circumference of your waist equals pi times the diameter, which would be this. So that way you can easily find out what the radius or the diameter is, and then it's pretty easy to make the pattern for the full circle skirt, because once you made this shape with the help of the diameter, all you have to do is to measure the length on several places, make marks, and then you can draw the curve around it, and then you will end up with this half circle. And now, in order to make the skirt a little bit less narrow, because that way you will save a lot of fabric, what I'm gonna do is to fold this pattern in half, or actually the model for the pattern, and then I'm just gonna fold here a little triangle in the middle, and I'm gonna do the same at the end, and that way I will lose a little bit of the width. So when I open it now, you can see that the pattern is not as wide, and that's what I've basically done here. That's why my pattern looks like it. So I hope that it was understandable. Anyway, you can imagine if that were the full circle, you would have basically taken out, I'm just gonna draw it right, these parts at the end, and somewhere here also a triangle. And when you would take these out, then you would have a little bit smaller shape, which would look something like this. This part, this is the middle section, which is this, has been very easy. This is half of the circumference of my waist, and the top part is half of the circumference underneath my boobs, and this height is basically this height plus the seam allowance, and of course I added also here the seam allowance, and also here, everywhere on the sides and on the bottom, and on the here on the top. Now the boob thing, so I basically measured from here towards the end of my neck, and then I added about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches, just to have some extra. And when it comes to the width here, I think the best thing you can do is to take a triangle bikini that you have at home that fits you. So I have here such triangle bikini, so let me zoom out a little bit. And what you want is to have a shape that starts somewhere here and doesn't go as narrow as here, but goes a little bit less narrow up towards your neck, which would create a shape that looks like this. And now that I have explained the idea behind the pattern that you can then create yourself, I will show you all the pieces that I already prepared of the fabric. But before we do that, I will show you some extra things that we will need too. So for hemming of the middle section, I will use this elastic band, which has silicone strip in the middle, and that way I will make sure that this mid-section wouldn't kind of tend to slide down towards my waist, but you will see that during the process. I will also need this narrow elastics, because I want to add elastic here inside of the boob part so that it wouldn't stretch out. And then I will need a little buckle, which will be behind my neck. But as I said, you will see everything during today's tutorial. So let's have a look at the boob thing, which is right now the official term for this piece. So I put on the bikini bra, and you can see how much further it goes up, so that you can imagine the proportion. And as I said, I started measuring here in the middle of my boob, actually beneath my boob, and I went towards the end of my neck plus about inch or inch and a half. And I also made sure that the width at the end wouldn't be too wide, so when I take away the seam allowance, I should be able to pull this through my buckle. First, I started pinning the sides of my boob parts. Then they looked like this. I also pinned the sides of my middle part and the sides of the skirt. Here is what the skirt looked like once the sides have been pinned together. And here we have the upper parts. When you copy the shape of your triangle bikini, you will also notice that the bottom is not completely straight, it is a little bit rounded, and you should definitely keep the round shape also here for this part, because this is what will make it fit your boobs nicer. Now that all parts were ready, I started sewing the boob parts together with a stretchy overlock stitch. I added the elastic, and while sewing, I stretched the elastic a bit out. And then the boob parts looked like this. I turned the pieces to the good side, and then I pinned the edges in place. Next, I have sewn through with a stretchy straight stitch. I used a thread in another shade because I planned on dyeing my dress after Halloween to a different shade. Just use a white thread if you plan on keeping your dress white. So, and here is what the boob parts looked like once the edges have been sewn together. Next, I set my sewing machine to stretchy overlock stitch again, and I have sewn the sides of the middle part of my dress and the sides of the skirt. I cut back any excess fabric. I folded the middle part in the middle, aligned the seams, and then I cut the back a bit lower than the front. I have done a similar thing with the bottom of my skirt, only this time the back section remained longer, and I cut the front about an inch shorter. And then I started pinning the middle part to the skirt. I've sewn the pieces together, and I have also immediately sewn in the narrow elastic band so that the section wouldn't stretch out. Next, I pinned the boob parts to the front of the middle section of my dress. I have sewn them on with a stretchy overlock stitch, and as a next step I started pinning the elastic band with the silicone strip in place. I made sure the silicone strip would face my body once I would fold the elastic inwards. And then I have sewn the elastic with the silicone strip on. I folded it inwards and pinned it in place. And then I have sewn through the edge with a stretchy straight stitch, and I have stitched the boob parts a bit together in the middle so that my girls wouldn't fall out. The next step was to sew on the buckle. And then I folded the bottom edge of the skirt inwards. I pinned it in place until it looked like this. I have sewn through the edge with a regular stretch stitch, and then my dress was done. Here are a few details of my dress. One tip for you guys: if you have rather noticeable nipples, you might take something like this. This is the inside of my bikini, and you can simply put it inside of your dress, because that way you can make sure that your nipples won't be showing. Well, and here's me wearing my new Halloween costume with makeup and wig and peep toes and all. I have linked down below in the description box my wig and also similar shoes. So since there is no zipper and no special parts on this dress, you can easily do it in one afternoon, or if you are a beginner, probably in 2 afternoons when you also have to create the pattern. And I told you that I wanted to dye the dress later, because as much as I like white dresses, I just never keep them clean. I have a dog, and very often when I go somewhere, I take him on my lap, and this is just a disaster. So I have decided to dye my dress a beautiful dark green. So basically you can take a white thread for your dress if you plan on keeping it white, but if you're planning on dyeing it, then definitely take a beige or light brown thread, and that goes pretty much with any color you're gonna dye your dress. Just make sure that the lines are neat, because once you dye your dress it's gonna be a little bit more visible. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I love white dresses, but as I said, it's just not working for me. I'm a freaking pig, and anytime I put on something white, it ends up being a disaster. I remember that one time when I went to the university with a white sweater, I decided to drink a coffee, which I normally never do because coffee gives me shakes, but for whatever reason on that day I felt like, oh, I want a coffee, and it ended up on my sweater. I was like, that's why I don't wear white. So anyway, that's it for today. Stay tuned for next week, because I have another Halloween costume for you again. It is going to be again an iconic woman from Hollywood films, but this time it's gonna be totally different than Marilyn or Audrey, and it is going to be also a piece that you can wear later after Halloween. So that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumb up. Also, I would be super happy if you would subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow me on Instagram. All of my Instagram accounts are linked down below, together with my vlogging channel, which I have started a few months ago. So if you want to know a little bit more about my lifestyle, you are very welcome there as well. I have linked down below the entire playlist Halloween, because I create Halloween costumes every year, and there are a few from previous years that might be interesting for you. And thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you with my next video. Bye!